Hi guys, before we drop the engine, a quick word of warning. Now, about a month ago when I did the video for the coolant bleed, I also did an oil change. So I dropped the old oil out, new filter on, new oil in. I measured it, so I knew it was correct and added a bit more. So I like it to be closer to the top line than the middle or the bottom. And since then, I've done about 1,000 miles. So I've been on holiday and I've done a couple of shows. So the last journey I went out on, the engine started slowing down on the dual carriageway to the point where I couldn't drive it anymore. So I pulled over. Basically the engine won't turn over on the starter, it won't fire, but you can crank it by hand noisily, and it's partially seized. On closer inspection, we've lost about 2 litres of oil, which I wouldn't have thought would be enough to seize it, but lost 2 litres of oil, and I don't know where that's gone because the engine doesn't smoke and it doesn't drip, so it seems to be quite a high usage of oil for that distance. In the old-fashioned days, I check my cars on every long or medium journey, I guess, and I'd be confident there's plenty of oil in there. And I guess I've been a bit complacent or lazy with this one, but as a consequence the engine is now toast. So if you don't check yours and you have a similar issue, then it might end up being a bit like this. Oh dear. I live on a slope, so I put the ramps under the back wheels again, which vaguely levels the van out. Also raises the back up, so it should give us enough room to drop the engine down and drag it out the back without using the jacks and stuff. Before you start, you want to disconnect your earth terminal, so you're not shorting any wires out and you're disconnecting them from the engine if they're live. I don't actually have to do it because I've got a isolator on this van. So just undo the bolt and it should pop off if you don't have one. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect any coolant lines which connect the front of the van to the engine. So I've got this pipe here, I've got the big one, and one round the back of here, a smaller one which you can't easily see from this side of the engine. And at the other side we've got this one here. So I'm going to disconnect all these. I'm actually going to catch as much as I can in a clean container. I'm hoping to reuse as much as I can, because if you watch my videos I only put the coolant in there less than a month ago. So I may have to filter it through a cloth or something, but say I'm planning to reuse it if I can. No! I forgot to consider it come out the other hole. Glug, glug, glug. I've got to say this particular pipe is a good one for draining the coolant out, because the coolant drops straight down into whatever bucket or receptacle you want to use. So if you're doing the coolant change, it could be a good one to drop off rather than the top hose I used in the last video. Removing this clip I found to be a real nightmare. So access from below is really tight unless you've got something that's got a really long nose on it to grip the clamp. You could in theory disconnect it at the top end of here. Access is quite tight above the starter motor, but you could get to it there and leave this part attached if you wanted to. But basically I found removing the pipe here was just easier because it's easy to access, and then it gives you access to the one underneath it to remove. So it should be nice and easy now. Like so. Move these out of the way. That should give us access to the last water pipe. To do it either at the engine or on the car. I think I'll do it at the engine, it's easier to access. There's the water bottle that connects here, so let's disconnect him. And there's a water pipe which connects from your bottle all the way to here, so the carburetor or the preheater. There's a couple of pipes, goes up to here, one from the side here, up to here, then it's disconnecting. That nasty bit of braided hose definitely wants replacing. This one was crimped on, I assume, by the factory, so I've had to cut it and we'll replace it with the Jubilee later. Coming from the thermostat there's another pipe which connects to the rail around the top. I have no idea how that hasn't been leaking. Definitely is replacing. Need to disconnect the vacuum line which connects to the manifold here. There's like a weird clip on the end of this one and the rubber insert and keep it all together nice and safe. If you're a pure bird carb like me, disconnecting the accelerator cable is quite simple. You just rotate the part here, and the accelerator cable just unclips from the end of there. Just need to remove this retaining clip, which weirdly is on a piece of string, and the accelerator should pull out. And put the clip back on so I don't lose it. Next, you get your fuel lines, so it comes in here to the fuel pump. So we're going to disconnect it here on the fuel pump, and then the return line from the side of the carburetor back to the tank, and disconnect it here. Pop a couple of pencils in, tighten them down, stop them leaking, and the fuel lines are disconnected. So wires, now we've got the brown wire which comes from, I assume, the pressure switch, which I don't think is working on this van, because I'm pretty sure my old van used to beep when there's no oil pressure, and clearly this one didn't beep. Anyway, on this van the brown wire for whatever reason connects to the yellow one on the loom, so we'll have to make a note of that. And the brown one at the back here connects to the green one on the loom. So I'm not sure if there's a wiring issue going on there, but I'll have to look at that later. So basically we need to disconnect all the wires next. So we've got this one plugged down here, so I'm going to need 2 hands for. So we want this loom free, so it's not connected to anything basically. There's a clip on the front of this one. Ow! Stabbed myself. Should hold that plug in place. Put it back so I don't lose it. I just marked that one with a little S for side, so I don't get them mixed up later. And underneath at the back is another sensor, a little sliding clip that comes out here, look. I can't do it with one hand, so I'll have to do that. I have to put the camera down, and I shall mark that one as B for back or bottom, again so I don't get them mixed up later. Like so, I just stick them to one side out of the way. So that just leaves the plug on the side of the Dizzy here, which we should be able to get off relatively easily, all being well. Maybe not with one hand. We have the earth on the block there, and we got the feed for the carburetor for the choke and solenoid cut-off valve. So I'll disconnect all those, and we should be done at this side of the engine for wiring at least. Great, I might just shear off the bolt that holds the earth on. Oh well. I'm hoping I can probably use that one if the engine goes back in, as it looks redundant. Otherwise we'll have to drill and tap that one. But pain in the arse. If you're not sure about the wiring, I say get your camera out or your phone out and just take a photo, or write it down in your own little weird code like I do. A photo is always best, because I always tend to forget what my code means later. That's annoying. On the back of the alternator you want to disconnect the 13 and 8mm nut and remove the wiring there. Get it out of the way. So once you're happy, your wiring, water, fuel and accelerator cable are all disconnected. We're going to be removing these tins down the side here, each side of the engine. Now I believe they are connected to this one here, so when we take the side ones off it will allow this front one to drop down with the engine, but to do that we need to remove the bottle here. So under the bottle there's 3 10mm bolts, which we'll remove, and from the underside here there's some more 10mm we just need to nip off, hopefully without shearing anything again. It's all a bit rusty down there. Awesome. So the side tray up here, we've got 1 10mm, which there should be 2 of, and over there we've got a blooming screw. I got no chance of getting that thing out, I don't think. So we may have to remove what we can of this and just bend it out of the way. I don't know, we'll have to see about this one. The bolts go along the edge of the tinware, so this side looks like I've managed to get this one off. So up at the front of the gearbox by the nose, we're going to be loosening the front mount. I'm not removing this, just loosening it to allow it to turn on the bolt without damaging the rubber at all. So I'm just going to loosen it to the point where it's at the end of the thread. looking at that rubber, I think that's going to need replacing anyway at some point. It's on its way, I think. So maybe that's a job for another video. Just to note, the gear shifter is neutral, so when we drop the gearbox down a little bit, this all should slide and allow a little bit of movement in the actual rod, so it shouldn't cause any problems. So we've loosened the front mount, so it rotates on there, and at the front and the middle there is another join where it should rotate quite easily. So hopefully that's it for the shifter. Back to the engine bay, we're going to loosen the two top gearbox to engine mounts there, the two bolts or nuts, so we can start to separate the two. There's two left at the bottom which is holding everything together, and they're going to stay on for just now. And then once we've taken these two top nuts off, I'm going to recover this because I don't want to get anything in there. So over on the left, the nut came off no problem at all, so got the bolt in there, but it's put more of a fight on this side. So to hold the bolt still on the starter motor side, I've had to use a 8mm Allen key or hexagonal wrench. This is actually an old one. I did my collection, and it's slightly more than 8mm, and it's still slightly sloppy, so I'm not sure what the actual size should be, or if it's just rusted away or what. But hopefully an 8mm Allen key will do you there. Hold it still. So at this point you might want to drop the engine oil, say through your sump plug. It's certainly easier to do it while the engine's up in the air than it is on the deck or on a bench. So I'm going to do that now. Normally I just drop it into an old can and it gets transferred into waste. However, this time I'm going to drop it into something clean because I'm kind of curious to know if there's any metal in the oil or any sparkly bits. Right, now the engine oil is out, so it means we can remove the filler tube, which for whatever reason just pulls out on the DG and DJs and stuff. I don't know if that's correct or if it's broken. It looks like it could be broken, because certainly on the CT and the CU engine there's a little 10mm bolt and it kind of clamps in place. This was my first mistake, and I had to re-edit this video just to add this piece in. So basically, I didn't realise, but this is broken, and weirdly the one on my previous van must have been broken the same way, because they both came off very, very easily. Now basically, when I got the new engine, I had a tube on it, went to remove it so I could put the engine back in again, and it was well and truly on the pipe. It took pretty much all my strength to pull it off, and then get it back on again. That was a fight. So basically I ended up damaging around here because I had to open it up a little bit just to get it back over the pipe. So basically it's not really made to come off as I showed you in the video, so you should take the whole pipe off. It's the easy option and you don't cause damage. So I managed to get the one back on without breaking it, but I have slightly damaged it and it's a little bit on the loose side now. So as a consequence I had to use a Jubilee clip to keep it nice and tight, because I'd opened it up slightly. It made it a little bit wobbly on the pipe. So you don't really want to be doing that if you can avoid it and yours is in good condition and not broken in the first place. So once you've dropped the oil, basically you want to take the whole pipe off. So if you go down the side here, down the back of the engine and to the back of the sump, there's a couple of 13mm nuts. They're relatively easy to remove. Just take them off, the pipe comes off as one piece, nothing gets damaged, and it's the best way to go. But of course, if you've still got oil in the engine, you're going to get an oil slick, so you need to drop the oil first. To remove the tube that holds the dipstick, it's actually kind of crimped on with a little tie here, so that again should just pull straight out, but I'll have to snip this little tie and replace that later with the Jubilee or something, or another crimp on when we put things back together again. So I've snipped it off there and it should just wiggle out, all being well. There we go. Fortunately, all four nuts came loose for the cradle, so I had to hammer a socket on, but nothing sheared, which is good. So, however, I'm running out of daylight, so we shall have to finish this in the morning. I'm just going to leave it attached loosely for now, so it's not on the jack. Now it's dark. I brought the engine oil into the garage, filtered it through the filter, and we got us some metal. We're about to drop the engine and gearbox down by about 80mm or so. So I have to be careful if you still have your starter motor wires connected. We don't want to stretch and snap anything. They will come down and hit on the top of these pipes here. So just be wary of those. If you want, you could remove them if you want to be extra safe. And at the other side of the gearbox we've got the flexi line for the clutch slave cylinder. Just make sure it's not tied to your pipes and stuff, or the wires on the side of the gearbox here aren't tied to anything, so when you drop things down you don't snap anything or damage anything. So next you want to get the jack under your engine to support it, because when you remove the engine bar it'll probably want to twist or drop one way or the other, and then you can remove the 4 bolts or nuts that's holding the engine bar in place. Once you've unbolted the engine mount bar, you'll find a couple of strengthening plates. They sit on top of the chassis rail as a strengthener, and there should be a couple of chunky washers as well. For whatever reason one of mine is missing completely. Yeah, so we'll have to replace those. It's well worth when you put them back on, cleaning them all up and protecting them with wax oil between the strengthener and the chassis rail, because it does tend to hold water there and promote rust and stuff. So give that area a good clean and make sure it's well protected for the future. Next I'm going to drop the engine down. I want to drop it down about 18 mil or so. So that's basically on mine where I can see the top of the exhaust. It's a rough estimate. Once we're down to that height, we're going to crawl underneath it, hopefully not get squashed, and we're going to put the jack underneath the gearbox. So I've got a scissor jack just to support it all in place, and then we can do the front engine bolts. Carefully does it. Do not want to drop this. My jack is not the best. So it's come out a bit wonky. Just gonna make sure I've not damaged any wires. Go a bit further than that. I think we'll roll that for now. Gearbox supported. Quick nip. And then loosen. Sometimes when you have sticky bolts, if you nip it up just a fraction first, breaks the rust bond, then you can loosen it a lot easier. Be careful with studs though, because you want to strip a thread out of any cases or anything. That's one. Just to the other side. And off the other side. Now that was quite tough to get off. It was well seized on. So when we reassemble everything, we're definitely going to be copper greasing all nuts and bolts. So generally here in the UK things do get rusty and sticky, so when I assemble anything I always copper grease. As always I forgot something, so up there on the back shield is a couple of 10mm bolts I forgot to remove. So that's why the engine came down at a funny angle. Unfortunately, neither of the 2 bolts wanted to come out, they're just spinning. Thankfully though, the plate is actually slotted rather than holes to attach, so I managed to loosen them enough to slot it out, but I'm going to have to address that before it comes back together again, because they will be a nightmare to get the plate back on if I can't get the bolts out. So one last check, make sure I've not forgotten anything, everything's connected. Nope, I think we are good to go. So it's just a case now of pulling the engine and gearbox apart. The gearbox should remain where it is, as that's supported on the jack. And then we drop the engine on my foot. Right, this next bit is easier with 2, if someone can operate the jack while somebody holds the engine, but here we go. Just need to drop it low enough to get the metal plate underneath here. drop the gearbox down a touch more. It's got the plate on the back of the engine cut on the back of the bodywork. So. There it goes. The jack's run away. So there we have it, job done, one engine out. So hopefully you'll find this a decent guide if you're looking to remove your engine for the first time and not entirely sure what's involved. It's pretty straightforward really, it really is. So any basic DIY mechanic should be able to do it with a couple of jacks and basic tools. If you've been air cooled for many years like I have, it's very similar to taking out the 2 litre CUs and stuff, or a slightly more complicated bug engine I guess. The biggest difference and complication really is just the water pipes. There's additional water pipes and connections everywhere to take off before you drop it down, and of course to reconnect before you fire it up again. But the process is pretty much the same and it's nothing to worry about. So this is a DJ GG here in the UK. It's quite straightforward. In the US, power steering and stuff is a bit more common, so you may have additional things to disconnect other than what I've shown you today. But yeah, hopefully this is a decent guide if you need to change your clutch or drop the engine for whatever reason. It should help you do that. Take care, bye bye.